Hello lovely people, how are you all doing today? I hope you're well. Welcome to Dingbat Towers. I've been such a dingbat. Couple of things I was going to do right now with you. I can't because I don't have the right kit for it. One of the things is, this is one of my peppers, little pepper plants, is to give them all a little stick. Tie them to their stick to give them a bit of support now at home, and then when they go into the garden they'll obviously get a bigger stick because, well, hopefully they'll grow bigger. I haven't got any string. I ran out of string at the garden, so I bought some more, took it to the garden. I've run out of string at home, so I'm going to leave that job for today. They'll be okay for a couple more days. I want to do it soon though, because these now need to go outside onto my landing. That's an area outside of my front door. It's on the communal stairs, so it's north facing, so it's much cooler than the flat. The flat, during the day, it sits around sort of 22, 23, 24, 25 degrees when the sun is on the window. At night, it's probably down to about 18 in the flat, so it's quite warm. I want to put these out onto my landing where it is a bit cooler. It's not cold, it's not going to knock them back, but it's a bit cooler to just start to get them hardened off before eventually they go to the garden and into the cold frame. They'll go into the cold frame initially so that during the daytimes when it's warm and sunny, all the windows will be open. They'll get a bit of breeze, but at night I can keep an eye on the nighttime temperatures and either close up all the windows if it looks like it's going to be below 7 or 8 degrees at night. If it's only going to be sort of about 11, 12 at night, I'll probably close the side windows so they don't get any cold drafts coming across, but close the top windows. But what I thought, actually, why don't I show you the rest of them in situ in my front window and the celery seeds, and then we can dive into the next things in the kitchen, and I'll just have to wait for another day. I should just point out that my little window dressing there, I don't normally keep that in the window whilst I've got the seeds growing, obviously to let as much light in as possible. I've just literally put it there now for a bit of privacy. And you can see I was getting ready. Look, there's all my sticks waiting for me to cut them and put them in the peppers. And water for watering later on. That I water in the evening, and then I fill up these two at the same time, so it sits there for 24 hours just so it can gas off a bit. But here are my peppers. So all the ones at the bottom here, that was the ones I pricked out that were doing okay. The ones at the top I pricked out from those, remember those horrible pots I had, and they were completely stunted. I mean, you can really see the difference. Let me put two together for contrast. So same sort of size pot there. Look at the difference. However, you know, these are coming. They are coming. These are all sweet peppers that I've got in the window. These are the orange bell. They're the nice orange, not oblong. What's the word? You know, like the ones you get in the supermarket. Your bog standard sweet peppers, and they go a lovely deep orange. And then all of these are the Fair Ozen, which are the paprika peppers. Now, another reason for getting them out onto the landing, and also I need to start to shift them all apart, move the pots further apart, is, you can probably see, they're starting to fight for the light as they're bushing out, so they're in danger of sort of shooting and going leggy, and I don't want that. And the other thing to say with the peppers, this came up in comments the other day, is some folk recommend pinching out the top to get a bushier plant. Others say absolutely not. Now, I tried it myself on a few of my peppers one year and a few of my peppers the next year. Usually if I try something and it doesn't work, I'll try it again the next year just to see. And what I found when I pinched my tops out, it seemed to just halt the plant's progress completely. And, sorry, excuse me sniffing, the pinched ones never did catch up and never produced any fruit. But Well, our lovely Nancy does it, and I trust her judgment, and she was showing me pictures of hers, so I think I might do it on a few again, just to give it another go, just to see, because I've got plenty here. I think I've got about, well, there's 40 in these two lots here, and that's another, 8, 16, 24, 23. Yeah, I've got enough to play with. Down here also, I've got the Catmint that with the little plugs. I stupidly bought Catmint and not Catnip. But that's what we're going to be sowing today, is the Catnip. They're all looking okay, apart from this one. It's looking like a bit of a straggler. I mean, it's growing, so I don't give up. I don't give up that easily. And then over here, they're teeny, 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 tiny. The little teeny tiny celery seedlings. Rather intermittent germination. Oh, but these were lagging behind, and I can just see one couple right at the back have come up. Again, just leave them, just let them, they'll take as long as they take. I try not to hurry with these things. Okay, so that's the state of where the various seedlings are at. This lot will get sticks and they'll move out onto the landing. This lot I might keep in here for a little longer, but they're going to come down here, or they may even come onto the floor, because I'm about to sow a whole load more seeds today. Woohoo! So the other thing I was going to do today that I'm now not going to do, I'm going to show you a couple of examples though, is my squash. The reason is, I've forgotten to bring any pots home. I've only got these 8cm pots, and at the garden I think I should have quite a big stack of 12cm pots. The thing about squash is they don't really like having their roots mucked around with. So it's not really a seedling that you want to be sort of potting on until it's ready to go out. Ideally, they would go out fairly soon after that first true leaf, preferably before the roots even get to the side of the pot, so they don't feel that popped. However, I found that's just not practical for me, they need longer than that, because I need to get them going and I need to harden them off before they get planted out. If I was in a warmer country, maybe I could do it in the pot time be shorter, but I find here I'm looking at about sort of 6 weeks or so before they're planted out. So give them a decent sized pot to start with, so I don't have to pot on, and then once they're ready they can go from that pot straight into the garden. Now, I'm kind of changing what I'm doing with the squash this year a little bit. So I've got a ton of, this is like gorgeous butternut. I can't bear to eat it yet because I just want to pet it. It's my pet squash. It's just such a beautiful squash. Bog standard butternut. I bought in bulk, I bought 50 seeds because it worked out cheaper. 2 packets of 20 seeds was more expensive than 50, but they'll be good for a couple of years. So this is seed for this year and next year. So it's good old Waltham, bog standard butternut, great. Now the thing with squash is, excuse me, they come in all sorts of lovely shapes, sizes, textures, colours. What's it called? Dessine. The one Dessine, I can't remember its name now, I haven't grown it for a while, the one that develops a warty skin, fantastic. And I love them for that, all their differences, from teeny tinies to great big ones, orange, that kind of pale peach colour, green, speckled, stripy, yay. However, it's kind of, I love it because, anyone who's been following for a while, you'll know that I now have that tradition at harvest time for the squash. I always have that picture of them posed on my table and me sitting outside my shed going, yay for my squash. And it's beautiful to see the array of them. It might be a bit more boring this year, but it's for a practical reason. So, looking through my stock of seeds I've got left, I had This is sweet dumpling. I think I've got one seed left in there, so I will sow it, and this will be one for climbing because it's a smaller one. It's gorgeous, and you can see in storage it's gone more and more orange over time. Beautiful. Obviously it's really little, but sliced in half, scooped out, roasted. That's a lovely meal for one. The other one I've got leftover seed for, about 3 leftover seeds, is this lovely, this is the black futsu, which they were quite green still, some of them when I harvested, and they've ripened beautifully in storage and storing really well. So they taste great, they store fantastically, as you can see. Why on earth am I cutting back on growing them? It's all to do with their shape and their nobbledy-ness. You can see that they are really nobbledy. For instance, if I was making soup and I was using the butternut squash, peel the squash, chop it up, cube it, goes on the stove in a pan for sort of 20 minutes or so, boom, I'm ready with my soup. With these, they're nigh on impossible to peel. They're so hard to peel. Generally when I'm using these, I'm roasting them. And yeah, they are gorgeous, but probably like all of us at the moment, we're thinking twice before we put our ovens on. My cooker top is gas, that's a bit cheaper. And also, obviously the thing with a gas hob is it's instant heat. You're not waiting for the rings to heat up as you would on electric. The oven though is electric, so it is a bit more expensive to run. And when I'm roasting squash like these, they might be in the oven for an hour. So, and of course I could fill the oven, I could do other things in the oven at the same time. But my oven is actually quite small. There's only a couple of shelves in it. So yeah, I could, and this is probably what I'll do next time I have the oven on for the remaining, it won't be all of them, but for these remaining stored ones that are the gnarly ones. If I make something in the oven, just trying to think now, like if I did a nut roast, a couple of baked potatoes, that sort of thing, on the bottom I'll do a whole tray full of the gnarly, knobbly ones, get them roasted, not to eat then, but just to simply scoop out that flesh, and I'll freeze the roasted flesh to make it easier for cooking later on. So, butternut, blackfoot stew, sweet dumpling. I've still got a few of the muscade de Provence, that's another big one. Now these, it's interesting because again, they're quite ribbed, can you see? But you can actually these are a bit easier to deal with because you can cut into them in slices and peel that slice. It is a bit easier. The only thing is, because they're quite big, once you cut into it, you've got to deal with the whole squash pretty much that day. In other words, lots of freezing. And then and I need to look these up to see how big, etc. they're going to get to. There's one of them that I do know. I had some sent to me from Christina. I've got Long Island cheese, that's a big one. I think it's a bit ribby. And then I've got small sugar pumpkin, blue ballet, and golden nugget. So I'll do a quick look up. 2 reasons. One, to see if they're a clump former or a climber. If they're a climber and they're small, boom, up the 2 peas. And yeah, like I said, and I'll concentrate, I'll do a smaller space for anything that's knobbly and give more space over to the bog standards. I know, it's kind of boring, and my Harvest Festival table is going to look less kind of fun than it usually does, but let's face it, this is about food and the economy of cooking, so yeah, see your fancy harvest. I don't care, I just want food, I want to produce stuff and I want to cook it. Right, that's the squash out of the way. Now, Nepeta Cataria, catnip. Please forgive me if I keep saying the wrong thing for these 2 plants. The one I just showed you in the front room, that's the cat mint, and that will form lovely domes, pretty blue flowers as a nice border plant. That might be going in that little end bed next to my rosemary. I'm not sure yet. catnip, the Nepeta Cataria. That's the ones I need to grow or want to grow for the cats. Now, because I've never grown it before, I did a bit of looking up, as I always do with any of these things. I've got all my pots of compost ready, I've got all my, this is for the tomatoes, it's all divvied out for how many I want to grow each one. I've got all my labels ready, I'm on it. I need to clear the squash away though, clear a bit of space. So I've got 6, can't count, smallish pots, just 4 centimetre, to sow these Nepeta. There'll be more than one seed in each pot. So when I looked up, I don't know if this is going to work. Careful. Can you see? They're in there. They've been soaking. So I've got my little tea strainer handy, and then I've got an old tea towel to bang them out onto. I read it was a good idea that they need stratifying first. They need a cold spell. And what I read online is the easiest way to do that, I've got a spare pot, the easiest way to do that is to stick them in the freezer for 24 hours. So that's what I did in the seed packet. Then they've come out, I've let them come back to room temperature, sprinkled a few, and they've been in the water for 24 hours because then it suggested that I soak them, and now I'm going to try and sow them. Sowing wet seeds is always really fiddly. And in the meantime, one of you, sorry I didn't log your name, suggested another way to do this, and I'll certainly give it a try, is to a shallow seed tray, sprinkle them in on your shallow seed tray, and then put that whole thing into the freezer, bring it out, and then give them a really good soaking. And I thought, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense if you've got space in the freezer. But never mind that, let's see how fiddly this is going to be, because they are teeny tiny seeds. This is going to be fiddly. So I've tipped the water out. I look like I'm doing tea leaf divination. They're all stuck to the dish, and then there's a few in the tea strainer. Let's whack them out. So I think they're going to be, let's see if I can get the dish ones out without breaking my dish. Scrape them. Try and spread them out a bit. They're not going to be easy to handle, are they? That's why I think that woman's advice about sow them in a little shallow, oh this is irksome, sow them in a shallow, she sows seeds in a shallow seed tray. I think might be a good idea. There might be a couple left in there, I'll come back to them. Because obviously, normally I would sprinkle them with my fingers, but they're a bit, can you see all right there? I think you can. You can see how very tiny they are. Now, what would make this really easier is if I now left them all to dry out completely, but that would defeat the purpose. So I've got 6. So I think what's going to end up happening is, without doubt, they're going to end up in clumps in the little pots. I'm intentionally going to sow more than one in a pot. So let's have that little clump. And let's see if I can drizzle them through my fingers at all. Oh no, hardly. So maybe if I make sure I've got a little bit of a clump in each pot, and then any that are left, I can sprinkle a few more. I can't remember now what was said about timings in terms of expected timing for germination, but I do believe, from what I've read, that it should be a fairly quick one to grow and to get established. And I've heard people say I ought to expect a harvest in my first year. So it's a perennial. In other words, it will come back, each year. And after its first flush of flowers, if I cut back the flowers once they've gone over, I should get a second flush of flowers. Not quite as not as big, not as showy as the first lot, but yeah, get a second little show, which would be great. The other thing I'm going to look up, some of you may have experience of this, I've heard various theories about what drives the cats mad the most, or happy mad, and some folk have said harvest before it flowers. The cats seem to prefer it before it flowers. Others have said afterwards. Some people think that the cats go for the flowers, others think it's more the foliage. So yeah, I'm just getting my compost. I'm keen to hear what your experiences have been. And now just a light sprinkle. Take out the big chunks. I thought I'd taken out the worst. The compost that was already in here to receive the seeds, I had already tamped down. And then once so it is quite a light covering. The thing, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, that most seeds, you think of sort of putting them to a depth equivalent to about the seed's own size. Just tamp all that down again, and I will give them another water. I'll use that watering can that's in the front room, has got a fine rose spout on it, and also that water's been gassing off for 24 hours. The thing is, if I've forgotten to put any water out, that's better, it's easier to talk to up there. I just realised I haven't made a label for my Nepeta. Yeah, the thing about the water, now I need a pencil, I haven't got a pencil, I'm a bit disorganised today. If I haven't left water out to gas off, I'll still use it. You know, if a plant needs a drink, it needs a drink. So, good, Nepeta done. Squash I'll do sometime this week. What is the date? Today's actually the bank holiday, Easter bank holiday, so it's the 18th of April. And it might seem quite late to be doing all this. I know you'll have seen other folk who've done their tomatoes back in February or something, but that's just too soon for me. The tomatoes, the squash, they'll all be ready to plant out in about about a 6 weeks time. In other words, the first week of June, because the first week of June is when we should be able to guarantee frost-free nights. And it's not just about frost. It's not just about saying, oh, well, the temperature's 3 degrees tonight, that's fine, it's not frost. All of these plants, the squash, tomatoes, peppers, they will hate it being at 3 degrees. They do not like it that cold. I try to only put them out when our nighttime temperatures are consistently around the sort of 6, 7, 8, preferably 8. So, yeah, it might seem like it's late, but it's not. I'm on time. These will all produce if we don't get blight. So, talking of blight, just very quickly, the tomatoes I'm going to sow today, I've got a whole tray, there's 18 pots, I want 16 plants, I may do a couple extra. This will be Gardener's Delight. It's called a cherry tomato, but it's bigger. It's more like a salad tomato. And then 9 each of my rose de Berne and my Amish paste. They're my nice chunky tomatoes. Lovely in cooking, they make great sauces, but they're also beautiful chopped up into a coriatiki. Can't wait for my first coriatiki. It's always one of those meals in the year that I long for, because I literally only eat it for about 6 weeks of the year when my tomatoes and my cucumbers are fresh. So how many weeks are there in a year? 52 minus 6, there are 46 weeks of the year when I think about coriatiki, but I don't eat it. I can't wait, I can't wait. Anyway, So those are my kind of usual suspects. I like to have a minimum of 32 tomato plants. I found over the years that that's the kind of optimum number for me and my being self-sufficient in tomatoes for a whole year. However, I always grow more than I need. A, because then I can give them away for other folk who, you know, theirs haven't worked for whatever reason. And then also if I get gaps in the garden, something else doesn't germinate, like last year the carrots and fennel failed completely, fine, bung tomatoes or squash or whatever in. So I am also going to be doing a few Guernsey Island, I'll come back to that in a second. And then I've got, these were from Stephen, thank you, I've got some black cherry and some golden sunrise. I think they're both cherries. So I'll do six of each of those. The Guernsey Island came from Leanne, thank you Leanne. And look at this, I'm so excited. Can you see the label at the top? Oh, it's going to focus on my face and not if I stand out the way. Kawanga. I'm a huge fan of the Kawanga Institute and what they do. They're in New Zealand. It's the Kawanga Institute method I do for seed preservation for myself, that thing of drying, 3-day freezing, and then they come out and they get used to kill off any nasties. So I wouldn't really recommend seeds flying all over the world, you know, in terms of biosecurity, but I trust Kawanga Institute, brilliant. And Leanne actually sent these to Paul. So for those of you who don't know, my lovely friend Paul is from Guernsey. And this tomato has kind of died out of use in Guernsey, which is really sad. So he's dead excited to try them. And I'm going to state it now. He reckons his are going to be fantastic. He's going to kick my backside with them. Competition. It's not, you know. I hope they do really well for him. I hope they do well for me. If one lot of them fails, I'd rather it be my lot that fails and not his lot. I hate being magnanimous. Anyway, so initially Leanne sent these to Paul for him to then pass one packet on to me, and the lovely Paul has also given them a 3-day freeze. It just means, it should mean that in terms of that biosecurity, that there's nothing horrible in them, that when we plant we're going to introduce some disease to the UK from New Zealand or vice versa. So I feel safe with them, A, coming from Kawanga, and B, coming from Paul in the interim. So thank you Leanne. So how many is that all together? 18, 36, 54. 54 is a really boring number, isn't it? Maybe I'll do another 6, round it up to 60. Then I will get my 32. That's a few that are allowed to fail, and then a few spares either for holes in my garden or for holes in other people's gardens. These Nepeta, I'm going to put these in the end of the tray that's got the celery in. You might have noticed there's kind of a chunk of a gap at the end, because we are going to now start to get into that lack of space. Get the peppers moved out and moved on. Get these in, get the tomatoes, and then in the week with the squash, because they'll be in considerably bigger pots. I'll only be able to fit 6 pots in one of these trays, and I will aim, I'd like to have, in terms of number of plants for the garden, because I know that's the one thing that people are always keen to know, maybe about 20 squash if I can fit them all in. Because I'd like 20, I will probably sow 30. Some of them, I'm not growing delicata. This is one of my last delicatas. Oh, I've got a couple. These are the delicata. They're so lovely, and again, it's great for an individual portion. Just slice it down the middle, open it out, scoop the seeds out, roast it. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. But 2 things I found with the delicatas over the years, because I have been growing them for about, I think I did them for about 6 years on the trot, and every year I said I'm not doing those again, and then I do them because they're so lovely. But they are for me they've been notoriously difficult to germinate. You know, I could sow 10 seeds and have 2 germinate. And of the two that germinate, maybe one of the plants produces one squash and the other one produces two. So 3 squash from sowing 10 seeds. It's a bit too risky for my garden. So this year, no delicata. And squash seeds are expensive. So I'd rather buy in bulk where did they come from? These came from the Seed Cooperative. So if you don't know the Seed Cooperative, I really like them. They are organic. A lot of their seeds are organic and biodynamic. So if you buy a dynamic gardener, you can trust their seeds. Yeah, these ones are just organic, nothing else. But yeah, I'd rather buy these in bulk at quite a reasonable price than buy a handful of delicata and they don't even blimmin' germinate. What was I about to do? Oh yeah, label. I've put that label. Oh, there it is. I need to, because I've got all my lolly stick labels ready, so that's for the Guernsey. Obviously, oops, don't forget, date on the back. But I will also, let me fish it out. This will show you just how behind I am in some things this year. This isn't behind, but it's timely to get on with it now. I will then make a note in here, so you can see down the side we've got January, what happened in January. So inside, outside, cold frame, wherever it is, the peas, and you can see it's CF for cold frame, the rest are indoors. Then February were the peppers, March 27th was the celery, and then this is April the 5th, celery again, but that's the germination date. So then, alright, germination dates, pricked out dates, cold frame, planted out dates. So onions, the onions are now in, that was April the 13th. And so there's just a simple tick there to show me that yes, I planted them out. And it just means that, you know, in years, like last year, I'll be honest, I was freaking out about the garden a bit because I missed so much time. And actually everything came good in the end, you know, even the weeds. But then the following year, this year, I missed a great chunk of time in March because my blooming back was being annoying. So it was really useful for me to look back at my notebook from the previous year and go, you know what? Actually, if I do it today, that's a day or 2 days ahead of where I was at last year, so it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So yeah, whatever you're up to, I think it's well worthwhile making notes, keeping notes, and they really can be as simple as that. The date, it's March the 27th. What's the plant? It's celery. What have I done with it? I've sown it. And then germination, tick, and the date. And the thing about, I didn't always used to do, sorry, this wasn't what I was supposed to be talking about today, but that's fine, it all counts. I didn't always used to write down the germination date of things, but I started doing that about 2 or 3 years ago or so. And that's one of the ones that's really useful because, for example, I think I did it because of peppers one year, because my lovely French peppers that I gave up on this year, those hinky pots, the Du Long de Londe pepper, they take ages to germinate, 4 to 5 weeks, like such a long time. But if you make a note, and you can see, it took 4 weeks to germinate, then the following year, when you've forgotten everything from the previous year, I think it's easy to remember things like, yeah, that plant grew well and it harvested well. That's the easy bit to remember. But sowing dates and like time to germinate, we can really easily forget. So keeping those notes, the following year, when I was on to about the 3.5 week of waiting for the peppers to germinate, look back at the previous year's notes or the previous year's notes and go, yeah, I remember now. Peppers are one of those that takes ages to germinate. Fear not, be patient. Right, I need to get on and sow. So I'm going to crack on and sow all these tomatoes. I'll do the peppers with their sticks in a couple of days. Must make a note on this shopping. This is my shopping list for the week. I can't miss it, can I? So they will happen in a couple of days' time. No urgency, but go out, get the squash. are we if it's the 18th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, if I do this squash, literally, if I do the squash tomorrow, it will be exactly 6 weeks until the 1st of June. So yeah, that timing is okay too, I hope. Alright my lovies, I will keep you posted on how all these are going, and particularly the Catnip, because I think it seems like a load of you have shown interest in that. I know a lot of you do it already, but quite a few of you don't and have thought, oh yeah, I fancy doing that for my cats too, so I will keep you posted. Right, I need to get sewing, don't I? So I'll see you all again really soon, I hope. I'm not sure what the plan is for the next video. Might be a sit down chat, I might be out in the garden, we'll see how the weather plays and how my bones play, but I will see you soon. Until then, please look after yourselves, look after your seeds and all your little green babies. I hope everything's going according to schedule for you. I hope things are germinating and growing nicely. And we're at that time of year when it's all about to go really bonkers, but we just have to be patient a little while longer, don't we? Alright, until the next time, cheerio.